It is almost dehumanizing to link a person's contribution simply to what they do economically.
So I just want to get this over with, apply for British citizenship, not having to worry about if I'm being deported.
We want people from all over the EU who are a hugely important part of our communities, our culture, our social life and our economy to stay.
So my name is Magdalena Filipova-Rivers. I am known as Maggie. I came to the UK when I was 16 years old. What the Home Office have said is that I have not made an application, which isn't true. I have made an application, and if they want to wriggle out on a technicality which is of their own making, i.e. what they consider to be an application, is actually quite unfair. I have made an application. I did so about 10 days ago, and it was very unsettling because of the data that I had submitted to them, and that constitutes an application, and I do have an application number. When I looked at my two options, whether I was to go forward with pre-settled status or to try and challenge, the lack of information they have for the years that they gave me, I thought to myself, should I just accept this? Should I just not go? Because it seemed like such a, Everest, like having to climb such a mountain, going through all these, historic data. Partly because what I have been asked to do is provide this continuous residency. But when they say residency, what they really mean is employment. It is almost dehumanizing to link a person's contribution in residency simply to what they do economically and how active they are economically. The reason why the system doesn't work for us is because the people creating it many times will not understand what it must be like to be going through a system like this, given how long many of us have been here. I'm not trying to say scrap it, I'm not trying to say stop Brexit. All I'm trying to say is let's look at this and actually make it work for people, and let's be kind and supportive and not put people in a position to have to justify their existence.
My name is Sonia. I've been living in the UK for 18 years. I came here because I met my husband in Spain, and I wasn't sure if I want to stay in the UK forever, I must say, but we settled, we got married, and now we have 2 children. But then with all these threats about no deal is when I start getting worried, because I do travel to Spain to visit my family. So I thought, what about if I go to Spain and when I come back, I'm not allowed to get into the country because my settled status is not being put in place. When I came back from summer holidays, I just decided to apply. The app did some checks, and it just came that I should provide further evidence of my residence in the UK. The problem I find with this system is they don't take into account your personal circumstances. Like when my children were born, because of problems with timetables between me and my husband, I decided I will stay at home and I will bring up my kids and he will go to work. So that means that a lot of utility bills or council tax, they're not in my name. We just put them in his name because it was easier. It is a bit discrimination because, parents who stay at home to look after the kids, we are the ones who have to give further evidence to prove ourselves. I find it a bit humiliating, to be honest, because it's like we haven't done anything wrong. We've been here legally. We came here because we could. In January 2019, I sent an email to my MP stating how worried I was about this settled scheme because, I had been living here for a long time, but I was a stay-at-home mom, and there were all these talks about leaving the EU without no deal. And he sent me an email back just assuring that everything will be okay, that his in-laws were Italian, and he could tell me that there was a very little chance to leave the EU without no deal. When I did my settled status application, I did send him an email saying, I sent you an email in January 2019, blah, 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 saying what I say to him, and then you assure me that nothing will happen to us. Say, why, how come now I start the application and I need more evidence. I appreciate your views, but the Home Office have rigorous policies in place and I have no power to supersede them. I think he wrote too many words to just say, I don't care. I believe you have to follow a process and all that, but I think this scheme is very unfair, especially with stay-at-home parents. I feel uncertain of my life.
What we're looking to do, we've said from the very beginning, we want people from all over the EU who are a hugely important part of our communities, our culture, our social life and our economy to stay. So that settlement status actually plays a big part of that. So what we're saying to people is apply for the scheme. I think just over 1.5 million people have now applied for that scheme. We're processing people obviously all day, every day, answering queries here at the centre. The team doing a great job of that. And we want to get through that. And people have got to at least December 2020 to apply for the scheme. So plenty of time, but I'd like to see more people get it done as quickly as possible.
How about the people who misunderstand or who miss information that they have to apply? How about the people who miss the deadline? What's going to happen to them?
Well, there's a couple of things I would say. First of all, anybody who's been here for more than 5 years can apply for that status. Somebody who's already in the country but hasn't done 5 years yet can get pre-settle status, which is then the pathway after 5 years to get full settle status. So rights are protected, they're there, everybody can apply. If people want to know more about the scheme, if they go to .gov.uk or just go to any search engine and search settle status, that will give them all of the information and a pathway into the website to make that application, and details of the centre we're in. And there are people here 7 days a week answering the phones. I've been listening to some calls myself today and looking at some of the email queries coming in to help people here looking to help people get that status granted. And as I say, they've got till at least December 2020.
We have spoken, we spoke to a lot of people, a few people in particular for the past week who have had issues with their settlement status, including a man who has been living here for 31 years and he applied for a settled status and instead he got a pre-settled status. How are you going to ensure that those mistakes won't happen again?
Well, obviously, I don't know the full, I'd have to look at the full details of that case, because what we found with a couple of cases that have had some quite high profile is when we've dug into it, actually the people doing the application have made mistakes in some ways on their forms. And as soon as we're aware of that, we can work with them, contact them, help them through the process and get that status approved. And that's our aim. The team's aim here is to get people their status approved. It's coming very much from a positive point of view, and that's why I think we've been able to work through so many of that 1.5 million already.
We've also spoken to a mother who she has been living here for 19 years. Her settled status was rejected because she wasn't able to provide all of the evidence. She's been looking after her kids.
The figures that are being published will show you that only one person has actually been refused any kind of status in the entire scheme of 1.5 million people. And that one person was a gentleman with quite a serious criminal record issue. And obviously that's quite right. We're not going to grant somebody that sort of criminal record status, settlement status here in the UK. Nobody else has actually been refused. That's the only one. What has happened, and the example in the film that Joe used actually of another lady, of a grandmother, was somebody who then actually applied for the scheme. So what I would say to people, if they've been in the country more than 5 years, they are entitled to settled status. If they've got any queries, if they call this call centre, go on the website, the team here are here to help them and get them through that process.
Anna, the lady that you're referring to, in her situation, it was slightly different because after Brexit, she was going to apply for the British citizenship. And they did say, she called the Home Office and the Home Office said to her, there's no need for you to apply for your citizenship. There will be an automatic new system that will be put in place, which is now called the EU settlement status. She did not want to apply for that because her citizenship was refused to her. Permanent resident. Therefore, she didn't want to go through another refusal because it's extremely distressing for those people. So that's her situation.
If somebody hasn't got their documentation correct when they're going for citizenship, again, there is a team of people they can talk to who will work with them to make sure, because people do have to get the documentation correct. That's a proper thing for a country to do. Settled status, which she hadn't applied for, and the other case, I don't know the full details, and if you let us have the details, we'll have a look at it, because we haven't actually refused anybody settled status other than one with criminal record checks. So we've got to be clear about what people are actually applying for, make sure we're giving the right information to people. The settlement scheme is one that's looking to grant people settled status. As I say, anybody who's been here for 5 years or more is entitled to that. Anybody who's not here for 5 years yet will get that pre-settled status. It starts the clock running so we can get their rights protected, and they've got that confirmation and that certainty going forward, which is a good thing for them, and it's what we as a country want to do.